everyone, welcome back to a brand new movie review on the channel today, and today I'm going to be talking about Dungeons & Dragons Honor Amongst Thieves. Now this film was directed by John Francis and Jonathan Goldstein, and this film stars such people as Chris Pine, Michelle Rodriguez, Sophia Lillis, Justin Smith, and Hugh Grant. This film is adapting the classic role-playing game of the same name, Dungeons & Dragons. But in this film we follow a group of thieves who set out to steal an ancient artifact which inevitably gets them mixed up with a villain's plan, where then they have to band together and try and save the world. That's all I'm going to say so I don't spoil the movie for you, but I just want to say this right now. I had no anticipation for this movie. I had nothing. I've never played Dungeons & Dragons before. I've only heard about it. I've had friends who've played it, but I have not joined in myself. So I'm a really big newcomer when it comes to this world. And honestly, when I saw the trailer for the movie, I wasn't excited at all. I thought it looked very generic. I thought it looked like very much just like a throwaway movie that they're trying to do to kickstart a franchise, and I just really wasn't that excited for it. So my expectations were kind of down on the floor. Just honestly, they were just non-existent. I was pretty damn nervous for this movie. I didn't want it to be the generic movie that I thought it would be, and sitting down and watching it all the way through, I can say that this movie's actually not half bad. It's actually pretty good. This movie isn't going to win any Oscars, but it's definitely not a bad movie. It's a really competent action comedy that I actually had a lot of fun with, and I actually was pretty invested for most of the movie. Starting with some of the good things right now, I think the cast is definitely the best part about this movie. They carry. If the cast wasn't as good as it is, I don't think this movie would nearly be as good, because what really makes this movie good is the cast and how they all play off each other and the comedy that they go for, and just honestly the characters in general. I found myself caring a lot more for these characters other than other characters in other movies that I've seen. Chris Pine especially, I love Chris Pine in just about everything he's in, but in this movie he definitely brings that iconic charm that he brings to every role and that charisma, and he was a really welcomed addition, and he was definitely my favorite character in the film. And also Michelle Rodriguez. It's not bad. I'm not a huge fan of the actress, to be honest with you. She's very much one of those actors where I kind of look at it, I kind of roll my eyes. I know she's in the Fast and Furious movies. I haven't seen them. I can't comment on those movies, but from my experience in the movies I've watched her with, I'm not a big fan of her acting ability, but I can say in this movie she actually surprised me. I actually didn't mind her. They do a lot more with their character besides the tough girl who's just hard as nails. They actually give the character some morality and they give her some actual humanity, and I actually didn't mind that. And she kind of reminded me of Drax in a way from Guardians of the Galaxy, which I actually thought was kind of cool. Like, I liked her character and I liked the way they did it, and I'm happy they didn't just make it that basic I'm tough character. Sophia Lillis is also in the movie. If you don't know what she's she's actually from the very first It movie, which I thought she was very good in. So seeing that she was going to be in this movie, I was pretty excited, and she was pretty good in the movie. I don't have a whole lot of complaints with her character besides the fact they don't really do a whole lot with her in terms of character-wise. She has a lot of really good moments when it comes to action sequences. Her powers are really cool. She can turn into like animals, and she does it in certain action sequences, and that's really cool. But I really wish they would have kind of explained her character a little bit more and her backstory and her motivation, because they do give a motivation, but it is a little flat, and a lot of the other characters just get a lot more to do. And moving on to Justin Smith, I actually thought he was actually not bad in the movie, considering that most of his roles in the past have ranged from meh to downright annoying and being my least favorite character in the movie. Yeah, he was actually pretty good. I actually want to say too, the humor works surprisingly well for me. I wasn't so sure about it from the trailers. I thought it looked a little cringy, but after watching the movie, it definitely has a lot of really good moments to it, and I found myself laughing a fair bit, which was nice. I also want to say the cinematography in this movie is actually pretty damn good, if that's coming from a perspective of from the action sequences, or just when our characters are traversing the landscape. We get a lot of really great shots, and I actually really enjoyed those shots. They were very pretty, and I thought the cinematography overall was just really solid. I also really like the world they set up. I'm not much of a Dungeons & Dragons person, like I said before. I literally know nothing basically about this world, but I actually thought the world they set up was fairly interesting. I also respect how they set up the rules for this movie very nicely, and what I mean by that is some rules have to be put in place for some movies that don't seem, to make it not seem out of place, or to make it seem like there's just no tension at all. They very clearly set up some rules in this movie, and I actually thought it was pretty damn good, and I thought it was smart too, because honestly, this movie could have gone sideways, because there are a lot of moments where there's just magic being thrown on screen, and they say it like, oh, we can do this with magic, we can do this with magic, but there's a really good scene in the movie where it's like, magic can't save everything, I can't do everything, And that's a really nice little moment because it shows that the filmmakers are aware if they have all this magic that can just bring people back from the dead constantly, there's going to be no tension. And it gets a lot of tension from that because they say this a lot, like, this cannot be fixed with this, we have to get this, and it's only like a one-time thing. And I thought that was just smart. I definitely think my favorite thing about this movie is the action sequences. I found myself loving these sequences. They're so fun and energetic, and honestly have a lot of really good choreography, especially with the hand-to-hand stuff with Michelle Rodriguez. They definitely work their ass off in those scenes, and it shows, and I really enjoyed it. And even some of the CGI-focused scenes I really enjoyed as well. Like, there's a scene with a dragon in a lair, and I thought it was going to look a little cheesy, but no, it looked really, really good. And it was actually very creative since the dragon was kind of a little bit chubby, so he wasn't actually flying around, he was more rolling. And I actually thought that was a pretty creative sequence, and I really enjoyed it. And it was funny, too. Like, it was actually pretty damn funny, but overall, I really like the action in this movie. I definitely think that's the best part about this movie. And I'll say too, most of the CGI in this movie was actually pretty okay. From the trailers, I thought it was going to look like all like trash, but no, it looks pretty good for the most part. Now moving on to some of my negatives with this movie, I have a couple of them, and I do want to talk about them because they are important, because this movie suffers from a villain problem. There are two villains specifically in this movie. I'm not going to spoil the one, I don't know if it's considered a spoiler or not, but our one villain is this sort of wizard character, and she belongs to like this cult of other wizards, which I thought was pretty cool at first, but they really don't do anything with her character. They don't flesh her out at all. She's very much a person where it's just, I want to be evil for the sake of being evil, and I want to take over this fantasy landscape, which isn't bad, but I didn't necessarily feel intimidated by her either, which didn't help. Some of her magic was cool, but the character itself wasn't there and wasn't as developed as they could have been, and that really dragged the movie, I think, from a sense of urgency point of view. And she really doesn't even do a whole lot in the movie as well, so I feel if they would have put her more into the movie and made her more of a big threat, I think she could have been more relevant to the overall story, but it's kind of thrown into the last minute with her character and just to make a climax. That's what her purpose is. It was there to make a climax, which was fun, but her herself was not a great character, and I really wish they would have improved that. I also wish this movie would have went for a more darker tone. It's very comedic at nature, and that's fine, but I would have liked to see a little bit more of a darker take on this perspective, because there are a lot of scenes in this movie that I could see being really dark, and almost could be like a horror movie in some aspects, especially with this wizard's character, and I thought that could have been really cool, but they go for a more family-friendly route, which isn't awful, like I said, but I wish they would have just tried it a little bit darker and maybe just stayed away from the comedy for some aspects of the movie. I think it could have been interesting. But overall, those are my thoughts on Dungeons & Dragons. This was a pretty fun movie. I had a lot of fun with it. It surprised me. I didn't think it was going to be as fun as it was, but it was a lot of fun, and that's why I'm going to give Dungeons & Dragons a 7 out of 10. It's a very fun movie that I could definitely see a lot of people enjoying, and if they make a sequel to this movie, I'll be there. I'll be there first day. But if you liked this review, please like and subscribe down below for more content on the channel coming pretty damn soon, and I'm going to see y'all in the next one. See ya.